All, this is our last session. Now I want to know how many of you are feeling sleepy. I need someone, you need to move your body because obviously when after lunch sessions are the most difficult to conduct because of the fact that people have stuffed themselves and we've done it ourselves as well. And you are kind of in that zone where you don't want to speak that much, you don't want to kind of talk with a lot of people, but we'll try to engage all of you along with the panel and try to get into the growth story of India. Everyone has a different story about India. Our own perception as an entrepreneur, as someone who's been in the trade for the last 20 years, has been changing over the period of time. When we used to travel across to the world 20 years ago, we used to find this challenge where we were not able to get meetings with a lot of companies where they told us that India is not the market for us. India is not the right potential target audience for us. And we used to feel ashamed of the fact that we are not able to do that. Why is it that I have to write 20 emails to get a meeting? 10 years ago, we found that yes, the acceptability has started growing. They've started acknowledging India because of whether it is the GDP story or some good, bad or ugly story which they used to see on CNN or BBC or other different channels all across. And then some people claim, as someone did about 15 minutes ago, that the Modi factor has brought in the change wherein now we are recognized more than we were used to earlier. And the fact is, yes, over a period of time, the consistent growth that India has shown has made this important factor that people are wanting to come to India. A lot of companies every year come to us and ask us for the India strategy, that we need to enter the Indian market, what is the right strategy. Some of them who've missed the bus are now regretting the fact that they were not in India for the last 10 years. And when they saw the Italians and certain European countries wanting to establish themselves in India, they used to laugh at them that, we are trying to sell to the Europeans and you are going to India, which is a poor country, which cannot afford to eat pasta, which cannot afford to buy your cheeses, which cannot afford to buy mineral water for that matter. But now we see that the growth story are double digit and in certain categories almost 100%, where they have seen tremendous growth over the last so many years. To give you a few numbers so that it would get your mind churning, we import about $100 million, that's about 700 crores worth of almonds into the country from US. We import about 40 million, sorry, it's $700 million, my bad. $100 million of apples and $700 million of almonds into the country. We import about $40 million worth of walnuts into the country. Our pasta imports have grown tremendously, and now what we see is that, besides imports, our entrepreneurs have taken it to the next level. So companies which were earlier importing have now set up plants in India and producing similar quality or sometimes better quality of products into the country. Whether it is dairy, whether it is wines, whether it is processed foods, whether it is nuts for that matter, we find that the way we are able to advance and we understand the Indian palate, because we do not like being Americanized or westernized. We would rather develop our own taste and flavors. We have a very robust palate, which helps us to develop a great sense of products into the country. I want to take this to Rakesh, who has been instrumental in bringing meat products into the country. So a country which is known to be vegetarian, a country where people, when we go abroad, ask us that, are you eating beef? Are you not from India, or have you studied abroad? Or is this anomaly that I see? Because I believe that Indians are vegetarians. To get the facts clear, only about 34% of our total population is vegetarian. 65 to 66% of the population eat all kinds of seafood and meat products. Though we are chickentarians by somewhat, we are not that adventurous. We are chicken and lamb. And lamb also, we don't take lamb, we love our own mutton. So Rakesh would be able to give you some insights on how the market has grown, because he's been in the industry much longer than I have. He would give you a brief on how he's seen the market grow over a period of time, from salmon to lamb to now poultry. He's been instrumental in bringing a lot of these products into the Indian market.
Hi. See, 20 years back when we started our business of importing salmon from Norway, it was a premium niche product required by very few chefs all across five-star hotels in India. And there were so many bindings of duties and regulations of importing and all those things. But last few years, when we see that India growth story, which is being talked about now, has given a very different dimension. People say vegetarian, non-vegetarian India. We see now, it was a belief that we are primarily vegetarian country. But more and more we see now, more and more we talk to millennials, the new generation, the aspiring India, which is the growth of India now. We realize that being vegetarian is to some extent is a monetary preference. Affordability of protein by way of having a non-vegetarian food was the primary concern. So if you see our background in 1960, when we were coming out of Bengal famine, the idea of the country was to secure food first of all. So what would you secure? The grains, not the chicken or the mutton. We're coming from that background just 40 years back. Now when we see more and more people getting more disposable income out of their hand, they want to experience food. And there are options in vegetarian food, which is our native food. We've been eating that in our homes every day. But when you go out, you want to experience new cuisine, new dishes. And more you go out, you prefer that, you get more flavors in vegetarian, non-vegetarian food compared to that. So huge growth story we have seen of non-vegetarian food growing up. Primarily coming from chicken, of course, but chicken is our own domestic chicken, which has been available so far. Very recently, we've been able to get access to American premium chicken into India. It's been 20 years that we've been fighting for it, but now we got it. So chicken, lamb, pork to some extent, and seafood, of course. These are few items which are doing very good in non-vegetarian section in India. Apart from that, the dairy products which are doing, they're also coming into livestock products, as we call them, not meats, but they're coming out of animal husbandry. Cheeses have seen, dairy, creams have seen a lot of growth out of India. What we see in future out there, that rather than just keeping, trading as an option, we leaped in last 3 years of doing value addition in India. Rather than being focused on just getting some meats and selling for some other brands, that was passé for us now. And we have now invested money in putting up state-of-the-art halal and non-halal, both categories of meat, which we process in India, mostly for food service, and now we're going for retail also. So we believe that India growth story is not just to trading. It has to be invested rightly with the brand ownership, quality, and product development. That's our take on that.
So two major takes actually, what I take from you is the fact that if you do value addition, you get a better value. So if you just sell chicken purely, your margins are limited. But if you value add and sell a sausage or a salami, you get better value out of it. And now you're doing it in India right now.
Yes, and even just doing a marinated solution, then you're not competing with the wet market, which is traditional. So even if you add or just vacuum pack a small portion of chicken, which the millennials or the new generation or the working women, they can cook easily, by portion control. That itself is a value creation. Just below value addition, you have a lot to do about value creation also.
And second, what you talked about was also the fact that with more affluence, you turn towards a premium protein rather than the lentils and other category of products that we are normally consuming.
Yeah, last 3 years, if you see, the cost of pulses or protein from paneer, like our cottage cheese, was actually more. If you see the per gram protein which you get from lentils and the prices of lentils in the last 2 years, if you do a right calculation, you will get a better deal from chicken. So that myth is getting over that chicken is being non-vegetarian food is expensive. It's going down, and we have so much of taboo about buffalo meat. The moment we get more open about buffalo meat, the cost of protein would be much cheaper to us.
How many of you guys are vegetarians? Can I get the vegetarians to raise their hand?
1 year too.
Okay. We have so about 20, 25%, 30%, which is the right representation of India at the end of the day, that this is the amount of vegetarians which is there. But we also have this set of vegetarians or who are, they'll eat chicken but not fish. They'll eat
so-called preferred vegetarians.
Preferred vegetarians. So if they're traveling to Europe, they don't mind eating the gravy for that matter. Or
I call them mockatarians.
Mockatarians. Yeah, they look at the mocha and do it. Okay. So that would be, but going from the non-vegetarian to the healthy vegetarian side of things, because you've been instrumental in creating, and we were talking about you earlier as well, the fact that you've created this brand, which focuses on health food, a healthy nut. And nut has been, been eaten by us and our generations for so many years because it has been a substitute for premium high quality. The price points have always been a barrier because obviously a nut is much more premium than anything else. But what you're looking at is a fact that you've gone into seeds and other categories of nuts and the mixes, so predominantly old school nuts meant that we take a few set of nuts and we eat them individually, except for raisins where you used to mix it with cashews or you used to mix it with almonds and then you used to eat them. But now what you're doing is you are offering consumers a wide variety of nuts, a wide variety of premixes nuts like a trail mix, which has got all the all the ingredients to it, and then the seed category, which is the chia and flax and everything else, which is now the superfoods. Sometimes they call it the superfood. So what what made you go for this transition first? Because you started this trend, you were from a different background, but you because of your entrepreneurial skills, you went for this category of product. What was the reason behind it, and how do you see the success and the challenge in the Indian market?
See, before I started the brand Happilo, I was primarily a retailer. We had 20 plus stores in Bangalore. So always wanted to create a national brand where people have good options for healthy snacking and the mid-meal snack, the hunger kind of things. Basically, the main reason was there's a big gap in what people were actually getting and what they wanted. There's an aspiration to have a healthy snack or a healthy brand, but there was always a gap between what was available in the market. Usually, as you said, most of the exporters were only focusing on European markets. There was no good product in India. But there were good disposable incomes there. There were people who wanted healthy products. There were awareness for the wellness category, but there was nobody catering to it. There were a couple of brands like a Planters or a Blue Diamond who were there strong in their home country, but they were not actually focusing on the Indian market. So we thought, well, there's definitely a big market there. We set up our own facility in India, and it is completely automated, which is best in terms of any international market you can go. So we present a facility where everything is automated. You don't have to really touch the products. Basically, we source the products from around the world and ensure that we give the right product to the consumer. And you are telling about the trail mixes and their positioning as such, because today people are not interested to peel something and eat, and they want to have a lot of variety of nuts and fruits and berries for that matter, or even seeds where you're mentioning. They want to just have a pack on the go. For example, there are a lot of people, if you're asking how many vegetarians, I'll ask how many people drink here or how many people visit the bar, so the percentage will be a little higher. But they again don't want to eat something which is fried chips or something like that. They would rather prefer a peri-peri pumpkin seed or a roasted almond instead of a potato chips. So that is why I think the brand is here. And again, basically the taste of the international taste in India is very important. And India as a growing country, I think, is one of the largest consumers today and the largest consumption country. Many people will say cashew is an Indian product, but only 5% of what is actually harvested in India is consumed. 95% again comes from the African countries. So there's a big gap in terms of what people can offer to India, and India is a big consuming country. I think recently everybody is focusing on India now. Everybody wants to get into India, and you said people who have missed the bus, they will wait for the next chance to get inside.
I think it will be very difficult because when you talk of brands like Blue Diamond and Planters, which is owned by Kraft, these are large corporations. If they wanted to invest in India, this would have been a great opportunity if they would have thought about it 20 years ago. But now with our home ingrown entrepreneurs who've created their own brands, have captured the market space, it's going to be more and more difficult. And what we also find is the fact that a lot of these retailers who are sitting like a Nature's Basket or a food hall, they've also created their own brand. So Future Group has their own brand, Nature's Basket has their own brand, but still they want to have a variety of product portfolio and they keep products from your category. But I also see that the fact that you have focused too much on the e-commerce. I find your products very readily available on e-commerce. So how are the volumes on e-commerce, and how do you see the ease of business with e-commerce, and how does it increase the level of penetration that you have into the country?
See, basically, e-commerce is one good thing what has happened in this age. Anybody who wants to sell immediately can, get to the consumer and, can display his products online. But again, selling on e-commerce is also a tricky affair. There are millions of billions of products there which will never get, in the first couple of pages. Nobody actually browses beyond that. So there's always a challenge. It's not easy also to crack the e-commerce model. But we have been fairly successful, and you can say in our category we are the market leaders in terms of e-commerce. In terms of modern trade as well, we are available in most of the modern trades. So nationally, as a brand in e-commerce, modern trade, and general trade, we have a fair coverage. Definitely, e-commerce is more easy to get through. I think for a market like India, where Amazon, Flipkart have invested like 1 lakh crore kind of money
Yes.
in India, and though they are struggling a little bit because of the regulations today, but again, the investment is there, and they understand that India is a consuming country, and that is why the growth story is there.
The other angle of retail actually which comes into play is the fact that India is about 88 to 90% organized and still about
Unorganized.
reverse.
It's the reverse
It's
of it,
unorganized and reverse 10% is organized. So your volumes come from organized retail or unorganized retail in terms of the proportion of the market. And obviously getting through unorganized retail, you have to go through a slew of distributors, sub-distributors, super stockists. Whereas organized retail is still much more easy to get access because once you get the listing, there are DC deliveries that you can do. So how do you see that growing? And we've seen that organized retail is able to offer you a much better platform than unorganized retail because of their space.
Absolutely.
Whereas unorganized retail has this space restriction where they're not able to give the right display to the product.
See, the main game, what the modern trade offers you in terms of merchandising.
Yes.
The smaller stores, though they have a good clientele and they have the most loyal of the customers, the customer doesn't have the right to choose what product they want. They don't have the option where they can pick their products. The modern trade gives that facility where people can actually pick, have a look at the product, what they're buying. They can, compare with a couple of good brands, what they have. And it's also about visibility and merchandising. That is where I think general trade is lacking. But again, in terms of the Indian market is completely different when you compare something with the West. As you told clearly that around 88 to 90% of the market is still general trade. The e-commerce may be so aggressive in India, but again, it contributes to less than 2% of the entire business what is there. So that says that actually on the topic as well, the promising growth story is actually again reflecting there where giants like Amazon, Flipkart can only contribute to 1% of the entire growth story. So that is the potential of Indian market basically.
Fantastic. Now, retail is one chapter, but what everyone focuses upon is the fact that food service is growing in India. The number of hotel chains have taken an amazing stride in terms of the volumes that they're able to do. Tier 1, Tier 2 cities, metropolitans, you have major chunk of hotels in all these cities, especially cities like Pune, Hyderabad, Indore, Bhopal. North India predominantly is very strong. Uday, who's been, I think, third or fourth generation into fourth generation into the food trade. I want to understand that obviously from a trade which was commodity in the beginning, where you started from, and today getting into this whole segment of food service. How has this transition been? Were you facing challenges from the old school guard, which said that, we don't want to get into this domain because it's too small in terms of volume? Because food service is all about service, actually. Yeah. It is all about smaller deliveries, but quicker, faster response time. You cannot say, I'm going to deliver it to you 2 days down the line because it will not work for them.
It doesn't work that way.
So how have you seen the transition? And also the fact that you also cater to certain category of product which is not very retail oriented. The volumes of olive oil are much higher in food service than in the retail side. And you cover that category. So what are the perils of working in food service, and how do you see the food service growth that you've seen with QSR and other format of chains coming into India?
See, Horeca has always been growing in India, and it's still growing. And we see one of the best advantages that it's an open product. I mean, once you get your product approved, you don't have to pay listing fees. You just have to get your product approved by purchase managers or the chefs, and they are very open. There's definitely a price-sensitive market, with competition increasing on daily basis. So price and quality both have to be matched. And we were majorly an export-oriented company, and I started the import part. So for me, there was a lot of challenges. We could not understand the basics. And that time was just all selective products that used to come from Dubai only. You could get that. And the brands were very specific. Now the Horeca is opened up. They are open to different brands. There are different product categories have started up which were not existing earlier. Now because of that, even retail has picked up, because when you go to a restaurant, you try a product, then you start looking for those products in the gourmet stores, like a sun-dried tomato, nobody would be eating before that. And so now sun-dried tomato, people are looking, okay, where can we get sun-dried tomatoes, different types of olives. Olives initially, there was a study done by Pizza Hut in India that, the demand for olives were increasing, but most of the people were just ordering olives for the sake of ordering. They were throwing the olives because they wanted for the, how does an olive look like, because nobody had seen an olive before. So it is growing, and we always, and definitely, the potential is there. And the new QSRs, new chains coming to India, new hotel chains, or they are buying out old hotels. So there is potential, and it's growing.
A counter question to that would be, obviously, when you talk about olives and people throwing out the olives, and now they want olives in the drinks as well.
Yeah.
And I want to understand that, food service is a very price conscious market.
Very price.
It's very price driven. How do you deal with that? We have currency fluctuations across the world. We have scarcity. Everyone talks about consistency, and that's one of the bigger challenges in India, where you're not able to get the right consistent product. Consumers get angry, agitated, chefs get very angry that you give me a certain product, and a lot of these chefs have now gone from make in India to source from India. They only want to service products which are available in the country rather than going for international products. Do you see that change in certain hotels, and how do you cope up with this fact that people want a very value conscious product, which becomes difficult for sometimes to have it at the right price?
See, in Horeca, majorly is the contract rates that you work throughout the year. And if you have a good supplier, they understand your thing, they are ready to invest in the market. So they support you in one form or the other for your price. They tell you this is the right time to buy. The prices will go up, and yours, because by January, February, your contract rates for the year are finalized for most of the hotels and QSRs, until there's a huge fluctuation on the currency. And they also understand, the dollar, because everything is on the newspaper nowadays. You see, dollar has gone to 80 rupees, now dollar is going to 90 rupees, or euro is going. So everybody understands that, and they also, certain hotels, they are very rigid. No, this is but we cover up our costs that way. And majorly our supportive are the suppliers. We have been working for more than 10 years. So that's how they have been supporting, and we take care of that.
Okay, fantastic. So that means that the trade understands the nuances, and the supplier end is also, at least some of the suppliers that you work with and you've been,
Sorry, I missed your one question was that Indian products are in demand.
Yes.
We see a lot of companies are bringing in bulk and packing it in India, so the cost is always taken care. So we also like to promote that product. It's easier for us. Accessibility is there. There is no issue of, if there's a quality issue, it can be replaced, anything. And the demand for Indian products are also increasing. A lot of people are making an effort on that.
I would like to add here, certain products which are commodities like almonds, for example, and meat and nuts in beyond almonds also. We've been looking towards Western world because we couldn't believe our own suppliers. There was no trust factor on the brands. Brands were not putting so much of money into standardizing their products, quality assurances. So more and more of Indian entrepreneurs understanding that, putting their time, money and energy into standardizing the product, whether they're importing it from a different part of the world or sourcing it domestically, but they've been able to assure the consumers that this is make in India, made in India, whatever you call it, it's a product you can trust upon. So that trust is developing a larger share of domestic produce, make in India, made in India, whatever you call it. The raw material could have been imported, or maybe some ingredients which are fortify the quality of a particular product. So that assurance is coming more, which is a very good thing.
But do you think food safety plays a positive role towards this assurance, or food safety plays kind of a hindrance?
It was a hindrance initially. When we started facing these challenges for imported products, we were not very happy because they were screwing us like this. They wanted us to comply with international standards and Indian standards both, and we were quite confused. We were actually blaming them. But in the core of it, if you see that anybody who synced with the Indian food system and Codex Alimentarius, and he's a winner. So food safety perspective from country to country would be different. We have our own apprehensions as our Indian demographics. So as long as we have been able to honor that, we are a winner.
So if you are able to synergize between Codex Alimentarius, which India is a signatory to, and most European nations are aligned with Codex. So that makes it easier for products to come into the country.
And consumer perception or a society preferences also. For example, in chicken, Americans have been feeding their chicken feed which was animal origin also for many years. But while they were fighting India on WTO tariffs and access, in last 1 decade, they worked a lot on converting their breeds and their feeding mechanisms on all vegetarian. Now, when they come to India, one of the conditions was that chicken should be fed with vegetarian feed, and they comply to that now. Whether they did it for their own economics or for Indian market, it doesn't matter. Now they're being compliant because they were watching it.
So that means corporations are also, it's not just the Americans, because at the end of the day, it's not the government which would do that, but corporations in America who are willing to move towards understanding the Indians' sentiment. And I know of examples where a product like Choco Pie, when they came to India from Korea, it was a non-vegetarian product. And later on, they developed a product for the Indian market. Haribo as a gummy bear is now doing something for vegans and vegetarian. And I find a lot of companies wanting to launch their products in India with the vegetarian logo and the green dot because they believe that it gives them a larger chunk of the market. So, Bahadir, I want to talk to you because, I don't know what's your perception about India, but I know that Azerbaijan has invested a lot in Georgia. You are the largest investors. I'm not sure that you are the one, but some of your colleagues would have definitely invested in Georgia.
Yes.
I want to understand that, what is your perception about India, and have you visited India? Do you,
I have visited India once, and I have a very new experience as a supplier to Indian market for apples and grapes from Turkey. It was quite successful, and the perception is quite positive. And my initial approach to Indian market was like in this logic. There is a very popular proverb saying one shoe manufacturing company sends its representative to Africa, and after he arrives, see that no one wearing shoes, calls back, says that, hey, there is no potential for us here, no one wears shoes, so they change, send another one, and he goes. And he's excited, calling back, giving feedback that, look, no one has shoes. Let's start.
That's a great opportunity.
Yeah. India is the second most crowded country. And from my many friends, Indian friends, I know that I have Indian friends, like Muslim friends, like different, from different regions, from Kashmir, from Mumbai, from Bangalore. I have even my classmates from the university, India. And also Indian films. My childhood, we were in Soviet Union in that time. The only foreign films that we could watch were Indian films. From Shakur Khan to, we know your...
The Raj Kapoor films would have been
Raj
more
Kapoor,
popular.
Raj Kapoor, yes. So I know that it is second most crowded country, and also the environment, despite, as you have mentioned it, we missed the bus, but train is coming, I think.
Okay. That's actually a good, such a positive thing to say that, you...
Because there is a poverty, but there is also great potential in that country. In a short period of time, India became one of the main players in IT.
Yes.
So what does it mean? On the other hand, it means that the nation has high IQ to become or to, let's say, educate that contingent there. That's why India's time gonna come after this. Once your, let's say, trade environment gonna be better regulated, let's say, as all countries, including Azerbaijan, we are suffering from corruption, from not well-designed business environments or rule of law, these kind of things. Once this side also gonna develop, India gonna become one of the most attractive markets and also suppliers to the world. For example, my very close, let's say, plans about India. I want to bring Azerbaijani cherries in the season to India, and I also, in a month, I'm gonna start to, I've exported grapes to India, now I have to take them back. I'm gonna import grapes from India to Russian market, for Russian market. This is a very attractive country with a lot of beautiful people. That's why I have fully positive perception and impression about India.
Actually, you know, what you're talking about is such a big fact about India that, you know, when countries wanted to export something to India, their perception of India was always dominated because of the BBC and CNN, Fox News, where the cow on the street or dog or a pig made them believe that India is all about poor people. And when you look at products when they came to India, it was laughed upon that how can you believe that an American Washington apple or an Australian apple or kiwi would sell in India. And today you would not imagine that, and when they come to India, they go to the fruit market, there is no cold chain. There is cold chain, but it's not visible. They still sell it on the shack. And the exporters were, you know, kind of distraughted that I cannot sell my product like this. You know, it's impossible for me to sell my apples in the open. But that is the way the market is. So you have that. And besides that, still it is a big market. So, you know, and apples have become such a big thing. And we have improved our apples in India because I believe that some of the regions in India produce one of the best apples in the world. Same is for our fruits. Most of our fruits, whether it is mangoes, cherries, bananas, they're very high quality. Packaging is definitely, that was something which was missing, but now we've mastered that art also. And marketing is something which has been, you know, it is part of our DNA. So, you know, so maths and marketing is something that we are very good at. And that has changed the way India is perceived all across. But, you know, I want to go back to Rakesh and talk of the fact that, you know, you've kind of broken the glass many a times. From being one of the guys to bring lamb to India when you have mutton available. Lamb is a much larger animal coming in from Australia and New Zealand. Much stronger taste in terms of complexity. Indian people particularly not liking that particular lamb in their biryani. They don't mind the lamb chop, but when it comes to the biryani, they want the soft, sweet taste of mutton, our Indian homebred. So how did you develop that market, or it was only predominantly catering to the niche, the upper middle class, as well as the diplomats and the expats?
See, first of all, breaking the glass was not something which was coming out of passion. It was primarily the compulsion of being competitive as a supplier or as a distributor of quality products. So Indian market, you know, when you say the domestic meats are very, very different. When we talk about mutton, our mutton is primarily goat meat. And we hardly differentiate between goat and mutton, goat and sheep meat also there, but it's mostly coming out of non-farmed products. You know, most of the animals like sheep or goat have been, you know, free-range rearing, slaughtered after their life of wool or milking is over, and that's been our food because we've been cooking it thoroughly, and with our gravies and our curries, we were comfortable. But there is a huge demand coming up from people who are coming to India from different countries. They want the meat the way they have in their own countries. More and more Indians going out, getting experienced with different dishes all across the world with various cuisines. Their demand of meats are different now. And what we could figure out, there's a huge gap in between where you can import quality meats which are reared for protein purposes or for meat purposes, and despite initial hiccups with the food service and all, now even retail is playing ball, and we see, you know, it's been a challenge to market those products initially, but now with our value creation and value addition facilities, we have been able to price them very competitive, you know, compared to a New Zealand lamb chop coming at about $30–35, you know, we are able to offer at about $10 now. So that is changing a lot of game or turf on the floor. That's been our USP.
So, you know, all the four panelists, one question that I have for, you know, kind of all of you is that What do you, I don't want to talk about the challenges in India, but we always, what would you tell any of these exporters sitting over here that despite the fact that there are tariff and non-tariff barriers, why should they come to India? What is the predominant reason? Yes, the population is there, but at the end of the day, someone would say that, okay, fine, China has a similar set of population. Why can't I go to China, which is, for me, an easier market? Access is better. And it's a faster entry market than India for a lot of companies. So what would your mantra or, that one suggestion, comment, whatever you might call it, would be to the exporter who wants to come to India to give him a positive vibe about India? So I'll start with Uday and then we can just go around.
I would say we have the fastest and the younger generation that are, they really need to try the products. They are very experimental. So this is the time for them to enter the market. And because China, definitely huge market, easy access. But the thing is that they don't have they have 30 plus, 40 plus. Now we have a generation which is 20 plus and it's growing.
Okay, so age and the demographic, which we always talk about, which is also a challenge because now jobs are becoming a problem. But age and the demographic is a big potential for anyone who wants to export to the Indian. So for your information, more than 65% of our population is less than the age of 30. So their consumption patterns are much stronger than anything else. Vikas, please.
Adding to the point what Mr. Uday told, that age is definitely a factor today. Because younger people would love to try newer things. You cannot force feed somebody who's 60 plus, ask him to have a Maggi noodles, he will never develop the taste. He will say he will never switch from his paratha or a puri. But the younger people are always, ready to try newer things. And you also talk about the variety what India has in terms of the population itself. Every 5-10 kilometers, the kind of food people eat changes. So there's a bigger diaspora where the variety of products can be introduced in the market. It is not one kind of product which only sell. When you compare that to China, because you are referring China here, so China, the population is typically, very conservative in terms of the taste. They are not very explorative in terms of what they have. For example, India is more receptive. I will not say that China is, all are traditional, but again, the percentage of populations who are actually looking for newer things is very less, because they are, again, language is a bigger barrier there, because I think 80% of the people don't speak fluent English. Where you come to India, a 6-year-old kid can speak better English than what they do. So again, the language is a bigger barrier. So India, again, in terms of language, in terms of age, and in terms of population what we have, and in terms of the disposable incomes what we have, I think India is a better, bigger opportunity coming forward. And again, the market, the government is opening, and they're trying to do business easier. They're saying the ease of business, doing business in India is improving, and also the Indian is well traveled today. 10, 20 years back, I think many Indians would have not even traveled abroad. Today, every Indian, or for that matter, every third Indian would have traveled today. So they have a good exposure about what actually they are consuming, and they want to have different products. So I think India is a great story, and I welcome all the exporters who are looking for India. I think it's a great opportunity. Definitely challenging, but if you have the right products and you have the right marketing, as you said, the insights and the branding, then I think definitely India is the story to look forward to.
Absolutely valid point. Actually, both the points are very valid, where at one side we are talking of a much younger demographic, but we are also talking of the fact that these young population, this young part of the population is very versatile. They're very adventurous when it comes to their palate, and they are willing to experiment. They've traveled the world and they want to have kind of a similar experience in India, consuming the same products in India. Your point, Bahadir. Obviously, when you are saying that you are exporting grapes to India, we used to never imagine ourselves importing grapes, and now we find grapes from all across Chile, South America, predominantly a lot of European grapes coming into the country. And besides that, there are other fruits coming into the country. So what is that one?
As the point about the travel or having, let's say, trying or experiencing more different cultures, tastes, and lifestyles, that's true. Indian people, or for to have to study or to work, or somehow we see around the world a lot of Indian people. that might be an interesting point for people who want to be in that market, also the young generation. But for me, my experience, I saw Indians very strict, as a strict bargainers. I never could make more than 3%, 5%.
So that's a positive side of it.
No, actually, with my Indian customers. You said they are very good marketeers. Also, they are very good bargainers. Yes, yeah. But regarding the trust, also, I never have experienced any issue. They are very familiar to, let's say, internationally known payment ways like LC or cash against document or this kind of thing. They are well informed about how to do international business. That's why, as an exporter, I had very comfortable process. That's why.
So the understanding of international trade is very apt, and they understand the ways and means to do trade. Haggling is something that we are born with. So again, something we love to haggle. You give me any price, I can haggle you down another 5-7%. So that is something. But Vikas wanted to add a point, I think.
Again, you're talking about the price. Again, because India is such a big market today, and everybody wants to enter the market. So the price offering is very important because they need to penetrate deep. And India, it's a big country, the supply chain is also a challenge. So people want a product at best price so that they can sell more. In terms of, it's about making more, turnover, more rotations rather than making more profit.
Any businessman, I think, not against doing bargaining. Maybe somehow, if it's being done in right way, it is sweet to have this experience until you do not go minus under your cost price. But that's why it's not an issue.
Yeah, but again, I would like to add, sometimes the companies go in minus just to enter the market.
Of course,
that is
an
also
issue of
there.
strategy.
If you want to enter a market like India, either there are companies who are ready to go, okay, we are investing for next 5 years.
Sure.
Till Coca-Cola, India is still investing the money, though they are one of the leaders, they are still investing money and losing money. Del Monte, everybody is losing money in India. But still they are investing, every year they are pumping in money. So I think the market is growing.
That's why probably they are aware of coming train, as I've mentioned it.
I mean, I would not want to call it losing money. I think this is money which is well invested.
Investment.
Yes, it's not losing.
As long as you're not,
I think companies like Amazon, who are spending, losing 1,000 crores per annum, they completely understand what they're doing. Otherwise, why would it be there in the Indian market?
So from my perspective, the question is, why do you need to be India? Or can you afford to miss India? That's what my pitch would be. Anybody who's got surplus to export out of his own company or as a country is looking for new markets. India is one demographic which is from top to from north, up north to down south. We have all weather zones. So matching with anything which is being produced anywhere in the world, we have market for that. So demographics which we have and the buying capacity which we are getting, so where else you will get that market? From a hilly region to a tropical region to a coastal region. Where else you will get that diverse market? Even if you have a product for one market, you have larger chances of being successful. The chances of getting failed in one region, may be there, but you have so diverse buying consumption or the consumer preferences. You will be successful any part of the India.
But yes, one thing is we are all talking about the positives of India. The fact that you need to have a marketing strategy is very important in India. Do not come to India without a marketing strategy. Have your target audience identified. You cannot believe that there is 1 billion people waiting for your product in the country, and the moment your container lands, we are going to just rush towards the container and grab everything.
It's not one country for that point of view.
So you have to understand that. Due diligence is very important in India. Do your due diligence with your partner. Understand what he's doing. Understand what his strengths are. Understand his weakness. And if you are able to assist him to overcome that weakness, please do that. And have a long-term view. Do not look at India that, okay, first year I made a loss or first year I didn't do that kind of business. Let me pull back. Have a 10-year, 12-year, 15-year strategy for the Indian market. And I'm going to assure you of a fact that 10 years from now, whoever has not entered India and wishes to enter India, 10 years from now, we can sit on the same forum in the 10th edition and talk of the fact that you had this success, this was the volumes that you were doing in the first year, this is what you're doing now. So that is something that you will see, the transformation would be very visible in front of you. And every time you visit India, every year you visit India, you see a new India. You go to different regions, you go to the same region, it's a different India altogether. The way we are advancing, it's quite phenomenal for people who have been traveling to India and have seen the transformation in the last 10 to 15 years. And this whole progression is going to grow to that level. I'm sure nobody's going to have questions, but I'm still going to give it an effort. Okay, there is one. Thank God.
Hello, how are you all? I don't have a question. I would like to add something on your point rather. As being connected to India and the foreign trade everywhere, now India has become a trendsetter as well. Like companies like PG, other big names, Samsung, they are more focused on launching new products in India, which go global then.
Absolutely.
So we are basically a trendsetter, and this market is growing day by day. Procter & Gamble, I'll give you a small example. Nowhere in the world there are small sachets, like a shampoo 1 rupee,
Yes.
5 rupee, 10 rupee segment. But India has that. Why? Because the beauty of it is there is A plus, there is A, and there is C and D also. So we are very strong in the CD as well, and A and A plus as well. So we have to, as you told, we have to see what kind of product and what kind of audience we want to hit.
Absolutely, I agree with you. In fact, that whichever companies who've come to India have understood the Indian demographic, from McDonald's starting an aloo tikki burger because they thought their Maharaja Mac is going to kill the people.
But
Everyone is going to buy a Maharaja Mac and they're going to stuff themselves with it. The fact it flopped because we could not eat such a big burger.
Yes.
We are not an American, we don't have those big mouths, and we don't have that appetite also. We want a value proposition. So for us, the value is in the price.
Yeah.
If you look at Domino's also, from something where they were selling about 6,000, 8,000 pizzas a day, today they are selling about 600,000, 800,000 pizzas every day.
Every day.
So with 950 outlets in India, Domino's
Largest in the world.
No, second largest.
Second largest.
So first is US. It's about 3,800 outlets over there. So second
But
largest.
number of pizzas sold in India are more as count than anywhere in the world.
Again,
Not by value, but by the count of it.
Again, I don't know, but if he's saying obviously it would be there. But the fact is because their it's like our large is their small. So at the end of the day, we have this dish pizza. We don't want the upsizes of everything that they do, and that's the way they look the way they are, and that's the problem that they're creating for their future generations by having that upsize. The amount of coke and bad trans fats that they're consuming is not good for the nation, and India needs to address that. We cannot just be aping the West. We need to create our own,
Trends.
our own things. We need to understand what is good for us and what is not good for us. Just because the West is doing it doesn't make it right.
Yes.
So that is something which is very important. And at this, I would, ask for the end of this session. Thank you so much to all the panelists.
Saket has got a
Saket has a question. Good.
I have two questions actually.
Please.
One question is why not Chinese Apple dominated the Indian market like Washington Apple does? It's because of the trade barriers or because of something else? And the other question is about we have a lot of problem for drinking water in India. And why not a country like Lithuania or country like Georgia is right now entered into Indian market with the water thing? That's the second question I have.
Okay. So,
That's two questions.
Can I take the first one?
yeah, please.
I would like to take the first one, though I'm not in the same domain.
Okay, you take the first. I'll have a counter on that. Let's see, because I am from the food business, so I'll give you a perspective.
So in terms of the
yes.
Apple, yeah. So basically, as per the Apple, again, India has its own apples. The Shimla apples are pretty popular. I think the barrier where you compare China apple and US apple, the people who are ready to invest in India, as we were having the discussion, it is all about the game where people are being educated. Even the walnuts are grown in India. Again, the walnuts come again from California. So how are the agencies or how are the corporations where they want to invest in India and increase the consumption? I think that is where the USD is playing a major role in terms of the apples, where China has no interest to invest in India.
So actually that is part of the game, because when Washington Apple came in, the first Apple to come to India was Australian Apple.
Yeah.
So they came into India, and everyone loved the Apple, and everyone laughed at the importers. You know, the first container when it came in, everyone laughed at the fact that Indian Apple was available at 30 to 35 rupees a kilo. This apple was 120 rupees a kilo. So everyone said that, how is it possible that I'm going to pay 4 times for an apple which is coming in from Australia? But what they realized is that the aspiration which the Indian had made him buy that apple. Also the season, because we were getting apples only about 5 months in a year. Yeah. Penetration to the south. The south of India was never getting the apples. It was always predominantly north of India, certain parts of western and central India. There was no penetration, cold chain was a big challenge, and trucks at that point of time, and still today, if you go to Azadpur Mandi, you will not find refrigerated trucks of apples coming in from up north. It's all regular trucks, ambient, which deteriorates the shelf life of the product. That was one. The Chinese apple was launched at half the price. It was about 60, 70 rupees at that point of time. Later on, it overtook the price of the Washington apple because people started loving it so much. It broke 2 barriers. One barrier was that we would always eat a red apple. The fact that the Washington apple is a red apple and a Chinese apple is like a pinkish, whitish pink apple. But the fact is it's crunchier. It stays longer period of time. So the shelf life of a Chinese apple was almost 2 times that of a Washington apple, despite the fact that the Washington apple had a coating on it. And also the fact it is much more juicy and crunchy. But recently, India banned Chinese apple, and the advantage went to Washington apple in that, and all the European apples. So you have apples from Belgium, Poland, all the other countries in Europe, they are already coming into India. The budgets that USDA spends, so USDA budget on Washington apple is about $4 million. So annually they spend $4 million just to tell people that you should be eating Washington apple, and that's about it. So a lot of consumers believe that imported apple is a synonym for Washington apple. Like Bisleri means mineral water, Washington apple means imported apple. On your second part of the question, why is water not coming in from various countries? It's a non-tariff barrier. BIS is a pain for everyone to get permissions from BIS. And recently I was there for one of our companies that we are trying to help to get a BIS certificate. For a BIS certificate, the officers from India have to visit the plant in that particular country and certify that it is having all the food safety standards, all the parameters are fulfilled. And they are not willing to do that. So it's kind of a non-tariff barrier. There's a huge demand of mineral water. And if you look at mineral water in Dubai or other regions, especially not mineral water, but I would talk of purified.
Natural water.
Purified water, the packaged drinking water. There's huge demand for that. And the price points are minimalistic. But Indian industry is very strong. So that barrier is being kept for a long period of time, but I think it's going to break down. Once it becomes online, there is a citizen charter, you'll find different waters coming into India. Sparkling water is still coming into India, but still water except for Evian, we don't see. Leave the illegal sources I don't want to talk about because there are many products available in India without proper confirmation. But yes, Evian is the only water which is coming into India with a BIS certificate. All the other waters are not coming, but the potential is phenomenal for waters in India. No, sparkling doesn't come into that category. So sparkling is, if you have a purified water with carbon dioxide, it becomes a beverage. The chapter changes. So you don't need a BIS certificate for sparkling water or carbonated water. So it's called carbonated water. Because you do the carbonation manually, natural.
So if it's sparkling, you do not need that BIS
No, we don't. So it's like, I remember, to give you a small antidote, I remember importing this biscuit from Thailand. Now, when I was importing it as biscuit, the duty was 10%. The moment I write sweet biscuit, the duty becomes 0%. So in India, the classification is very important, and it changes the HS code, changes the valuation of the product and also the custom duty tariffs on the product. So that is something that you need to understand, whether it classifies, and certain times certain products get classified into 3 or 4 categories or 3 or 4 HS codes. So that is something for you to, talk to your consultant or talk to your partner in India, and he would be able to assist you with the same.
Due diligence.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you to the panelists. It's been great, and I'm still finding people with their eyes open, so I'm happy that
Thank you. We would request you to be on the stage, and we would like to call up Dr. Ashraf Mahathir on the stage to hand over the memento to our panelist and moderator. You've been great, guys, and we have learned a lot of things from you.